Hey guys, we're just here to show you the changes for 1.32 to 1.32 release of software for the Global EcoPack. It fixes there's one fix and there's one safety upgrade. So the fix is we put a couple things in the software to prevent 4 dashes. If you've ever seen just 4 dashes on the topside display, it's usually after a lightning storm or a power outage of some kind. Okay, so if you don't know, if there's ever 4 dashes on the display, it just means that the ColdFire has lost its brains, that the software has gone out of it. So to demonstrate that, I could just show you, just unplugging the secondary of the transformer. I'm just going to take the ColdFire out, and then what happens is, if we power it back up, there's nothing telling the topside what to display. So it's just going to display those 4 dashes. Okay, so that's its default if it's not getting any advice from the motherboard saying show the temperature or this or that. It's just going to display 4 dashes. Okay, and in the past, what you would have to do is change the processor card. So you would have to actually replace this card. Okay, with this new software, it's going to prevent this from happening. Okay, so there's a few reasons why, but we don't need to get into that. Just the new software will prevent the 4 dashes from ever occurring. I'll just plug this back in. Okay, so as with the processor card, you want to make sure it's securely, firmly plugged in. And put the screw in. I'm going to power it back up. And we've already installed version 1.32. So wait for the processor to take over. And there we have A for North American and 1.32. So this is 1.32. And we put in just some added dry fire protection. So the way the heater starts is a little bit different now. So it used to be the pump would turn on low speed when it was calling for heat. It would check to make sure the pressure switch was closed. Okay, and then it would do a minute prime, so it would run for a minute, make sure the pressure switch stays closed, and then it would engage the heater and it would heat until it was a degree above the set point. So we just added an extra layer of protection in there. So I'll just get this to call for heat. It's at 105, so I have to turn it up to 107, which if you don't remember, you set for 104, let it go back to the actual temperature, and then hold the up key for 5 seconds. Sorry if you can't see that. Okay, and we'll turn it up to 107. Now pump 1 is going to come on low speed, and you see the heater icon flashing. It's going to do this for a minute. So the flow switch was open because the pump was off. Turns it on low speed. It wants to see that the pressure switch closes, okay, and engages. And when it does, it's going to turn the heater on for 5 seconds. Okay, so the heater will come on for 5 seconds, and then it's watching the high limit probe, and it's making sure that the high limit probe isn't heating up too quickly. If it is, it assumes that it knows that there's a restriction on the pressure side, or there's not enough water in the heat tube for whatever reason. Okay, it turns the heater on for 5 seconds and then shuts it off. And then after that, it's going to be off for 15 seconds. It watches how quickly the heater barrel heats up. And if it doesn't heat up very quickly, which is what you want because the water is keeping it cool, then it'll turn the heater on and heat like normal. So soon you'll see the heater is going to come on for 5 seconds. And then it's going to shut off for 15 seconds. Make sure the heat barrel isn't heating up too quickly. If it is, there's not enough water flow. And if there was an issue, it'll display OTH and then cut it out. So that's the heater on for 5 seconds. I don't know if you can see that relay, but the relay just went out. So now it's going to be out for 15 seconds. It turns it on for 5, then the heater turns off for 15 seconds. The software is watching the high limit probe, the temperature of the high limit probe, making sure it's not heating up too quickly. And then our heater just engaged there. So now it's going to heat as it normally would. Okay, so just to show you what I mean with OTH, I'm just going to close the pressure side ball valve to create the problem. that's the pressure side of pump 1 ball valve is closed. So now the water in the heater barrel is heating up quicker than it should. Just watching the high limit probe. You see OTH, and it's going to cut out the heater. Now it's going to do its minute cool down, okay, which it always does after the heater shuts off. After its minute, the pump is going to shut down. Watch the flow switch, the pressure switch again, make sure it opens when the pump's off. Turn it back on low, make sure it closes, and then go through this cycle again. On for 5 seconds, off for 15, and double check that everything's working fine there. Okay, so I'll just open that valve again. It's cooling down the heater barrel. Pump shuts off just for 5 seconds. Make sure the flow switch is working properly, that it opened. Turns it back on, wants to see the flow switch closed. Inflow is good, now it's doing its minute prime. Just moving water past the heater barrel, making sure the flow switch, pressure switch stays closed. It'll come on for 5 seconds, off for 15 again. So that's what that does. There's also there's been a few complaints in the field that the temperature isn't being displayed correctly. Okay, for instance, the water is sitting at 105, but it's only actually 102, something like that. We haven't found any hardware or software issues, but what we did just to be able to fix those in the field quickly and easily is put in temperature calibration. Now this was in the 1.30 as well, but just to recap, we're in 1.32. To get at temperature calibration, you hold the filtration key down. So for instance, it's at 105, or it's displaying 105, but you think the actual water temperature is 102. You would hold the filtration key down for 30 seconds. It's going to say settings. It's going to say LLP, your low level programming, where we set up the spot pack, tell it how it's installed. Keep holding it until the temperature flashes. So it's going to flash on 105. Okay, so there's our 105 flashing. Now we said the actual water temperature is 102. This is hypothetical, but you turn it down to 102. Okay, and then just push the pump 1 button to exit, and now our temperature is just 102, so it'll act like it's 102, and this will now remember that temperature calibration when they turn the spa off, turn it back on. I don't know if you would want consumers to be able to do this, because they could potentially get the water way hotter than it should be, but as a tech or people that are having an issue, at least you have a tool now in the software that you can go in and calibrate the temperature for them. And I think that's it. So OTH is our over temp heater error. It's just going to display very quickly when the high limit probe is getting too hot. The heater barrel is getting too hot too quickly. Okay, so we'll just do that one more time. Close the pressure side valve. It's going to be getting hotter quicker than it should. Get OTH. It's going to cut out the heater, go through its cool down, go through its prime, double check that everything's working properly, and heat like normal.